So this is a topic. This is an idea that I've had rolling around in my brain for a while that I've been wanting to figure out a way to talk about, and I just haven't been quite sure how to what the right venue is for this conversation. And now that I've been doing these kind of quick rambles or whatever the hell you want to call them, just sitting here and then a thought hits my brain and comes out my mouth. It's like, this is something I actually do want to talk about. And that is that I think I play games the wrong way. And I definitely don't recommend that you play games the way I play games. I think that, and we'll get into all this, I think that playing video games like a normal, and everyone's game preference of how they play will vary, but I you know what? Let's dive in and break this down bit by bit. So, why I think I play games the wrong way. I think it starts off. So, two things hit my mind when I boot up a game. The first thing is like what hits everyone's mind. It's like, okay, I spent money on this. I hope it's good. I hope I get so lost in this thing that I don't think about the second part of my brain that's always ringing around between my ears. And that is, okay, this is going to be some form of content. I'm going to cover this on the channel. You know what I mean? So I need to be taking notes to make sure that whenever we do the monthly ranking or whatever, I don't totally blank out and forget anything and everything to talk about regarding the game that I'm playing. And then, on top of that, I'm trying to play as many games as possible to cover here on the channel. So while I'm playing one game, I'm having to be cognizant of how long this game is and how long of a time gap is there between when I first boot up this game before the next thing that comes out that I'm going to have to, dive into. Do I have enough time to dedicate to the one game before the next game that's coming out? And which game am I more excited for? Do I need to put that one down, to be ready to pick up the next one and dive full steam ahead into that one? Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm playing something, if I jump into a game, and even if it's something I'm not expecting to really enjoy, but I just end up really, really clicking with, like Indiana Jones last year in 2024, I didn't have overly high expectations for that game, but I jumped into it, and immediately everything else that was coming out, I was just like, wipe it off the calendar. I do not care. Like, I'm going to play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle in its entirety. I'm going to do damn near everything I can do in this game. Everything I want to do in this game, that is becoming the number one gaming priority for me. Like, I'm not going to play anything until I do everything in this game. Which, thankfully, Indy is like a perfectly paced game where you can get in and out of that thing in 25 hours and do pretty much everything that you want to in that game. So, that's not like it's robbing too much time away. But there will be instances where it's like, yeah, I'm totally locked into this 100+ hour thing, like The Witcher 3. I remember playing The Witcher 3 and putting off a lot of new games that were coming out until I finished up my 100+ hour playthrough of that. I was like, I don't want to play anything other than this. I'm just so enamored with this story. I don't want to leave this world at all. So I do have that human element of me that I try to prioritize first and foremost over the content creation side of things. Like, as just a enjoyer of games, I try to make that always the number one kind of objective. If you're enjoying something so much that you don't want to be pulled away from it, then don't be pulled away from it. You know what I mean? Content can kind of come in second place. But that's where it gets interesting, where what about the games that you're kind of liking? The games that you enjoy a good deal, that you could maybe enjoy a great deal if you gave it the proper time, if you really dove into it. That's where I struggle a little bit. Where if I'm kind of enjoying a game, if I'm thinking like, yeah, this is a good 7.5, 8 out of 10, I rarely give those games enough time to become an 8.5 or a 9. Don't get me wrong, I'll finish those games, like I'll play through the main story, but how often do we play through a big open world thing and, a big RPG, whatever, and the main story is like the weakest part? And it's like, if you go off and do the side questing, that's where the game really starts to shine. And so I know that there's so many of those experiences that I've robbed myself of because I'll be playing through the main story and I'm like, yeah, this is okay. And I kind of turn off my brain to that game and jump into the next one. Whereas if maybe, if I chose to dive in, really dig deep and seek out a lot of the side content or just dick around in the open world, like I'm saying, man, like how many games is like some of your most fond memories of even playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City back in the day or San Andreas or GTA 3 or whatever? Like, how many of your favorite memories from those games are anything relating to the main story? Most people's favorite memories are putting in cheat codes and, spawning a tank or a jetpack and just roaming around, just dicking around these open world environments. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's a fair argument to be made that, like, you can say that maybe it's technically bad game design to some standpoint if your critical path is literally the worst part of your game. And I'm not saying that necessarily about the PS2 GTA games. Like San Andreas had an excellent main path. But like if you can play through a game and it has so many cool surrounding parts with the side content and the open world or whatever, and the main path, the critical path, like the thing that you have to do if you want to see the credits roll, the thing that you have to do to technically beat the game, to finish the game, if that's the worst part of your game, yeah, I mean that's kind of on the developer at that point. But even just, talking about that, beating a game, finishing a game, and the credibility or whatever that comes with that, or the feeling that from this side of the screen, from the content creation standpoint, where I don't feel that I can necessarily give a fully formed opinion on a game unless I finish it. Whereas how many people have played Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas for hundreds of hours and barely ever touched the main path, the critical path of the game? And so you never finished it technically, but you've played 100 hours and maybe I've played 30 hours. Why is your opinion not just as valid as my opinion? You know what I mean? I don't really understand that. You can maybe make the argument to some degree that, sure, if you go through the story, see it to its finality, you can at least speak to the technical side of things, going, yeah, okay, well, the game isn't broken. You can get through the main path. It doesn't totally bug out. Like, you can speak more to the technical side in that aspect, but just as an overall, like if you were listening to someone analyze a game, I don't know, if you're talking about somebody who played 100 hours of this open world RPG, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, for instance. I played through the main story, it took me about 50 hours. There's people who have probably put 300 hours into that game who haven't finished the main story yet. It's like, I think that their opinion on the game is probably more interesting than mine, but there is something kind of inherently, I don't know what the word is. Like, we value the term finishing. We value the term beating the game. It's like, why? I could maybe understand for Souls games or for games that are just extremely difficult, like old school arcade games or whatever the case, like beating it. Yeah, there's some, I don't know if accomplishment is the right word, but there's something there that lends to credibility. But for just like these big expansive worlds, I don't know. I don't really know how it's any more credible for me to finish Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 than it is for someone to just play it for hundreds of hours and never really have any intention of finishing the game whatsoever. But there is that thing that just lingers in my mind where it's like, nope, you can't speak about this game until you finished it. So I really, really prioritize finishing games to be able to come in here and assess those games, to talk about those games with you all. But at the same time, in doing that, you're going to finish a lot of average to below average games. And then it's this time thing where it's like, well, you just spent 20 hours finishing a 6 out of 10. If you would have cut that off at 5 hours, you could have finished 2 games that were 7 hours. You know what I mean? Like, you start to have these, you start to think about the time wasted where you could have been playing better stuff or just doing other stuff with your time that was more productive than, sinking another 20 hours into a game that you were kind of lukewarm at best on. And I mean, of course, you couldn't go in there and review the game or talk about it in any in-depth manner. If you played 10 hours of a 70-hour RPG, of course you're gonna want to listen to the person who has played the full 70 hours or whatever the, really dove into the game. Like, you're not going to take someone's opinion seriously if they've played just that little bit of this humongous game, and you shouldn't. But it's the thing where you could still give early impressions on something. If you played 10 of the 70 hours and you don't feel like playing anymore, just that's the impression, that's the opinion, and then you could totally move on. And I'm sitting here having this is more I'm recording this, but really this is an internal dialogue going on between like two parts of my brain that are firing and arguing with one another in real time right now. But really what I'm trying to say with this whole ramble is that's kind of the abnormal thing that people on my end will do that I don't think y'all should do. I think that that's a massive waste of your time. I think it is a massive waste of your time to continue playing a game to technically beat it that you're not totally enjoying, especially if you're not covering the game, if you're not a developer of the game, if you're not a consultant of the game, if you're not making money from some angle of this not so great game that you're powering through, I would highly recommend just putting the thing down and going and jumping into something that you end up clicking with, something that you end up enjoying. It's the thing where I can make some justification for powering through a Hellblade 2. You know what I mean? Where, sure, it's a 7-hour game or so. And I knew from the first hour that it wasn't going to be incredible. But it's like, yeah, if I'm going to talk about Hellblade 2 on the channel and it's only 7 hours long, I need to finish this thing to have a fully formed opinion. So there are instances where it does make some sense for me on my end to finish a game I'm not enjoying. But for the average person, I would absolutely 100% not recommend doing that. I would absolutely 100% not recommend you playing something to its entirety that you don't really enjoy. And that's, back to that idea of playing games the wrong way. I think to some degree, I kind of have to play games the wrong way sometimes. Not all the time. And that's the thing I've talked about before on the channel, of trying to get better about that. You're jumping into a Far Cry 6 and putting 60 hours into a Far Cry 6, or even something that's a little bit shorter like a Harold Halibut. It's like, dude, just to be able to feel confident in your ranking at the end of the month, like, is that really... I don't know if I don't know if the ends justify the means there. I don't know if it's really worth that time to be diving into a extremely bloated, extremely below average game to finish it just to feel that you can rank it at the end of the month. And once again, just talking about that weird content creation brain, where that's the dilemma that I'm often thinking about, where it's like, I don't feel like I can actually rank this thing unless I've finished it. But it's the thing where I need to make sure I'm always, sometimes I'll forget in the tier maker to put in the didn't finish tier. I need to always have that shit right there. It's like an easy out, where it's like, I didn't want to finish Harold Halibut, so I didn't finish Harold Halibut. But I did finish Harold Halibut, and I did finish Suicide Squad, and I did finish Far Cry 6. It's like, what are you doing with your life? In that time span, you could have played through all of Metro Exodus twice. A game that's just been sitting there on my backlog for years. A game that people have told me is like legitimately one of the modern greats. It's like, okay, Far Cry 6, Harold Halibut, Hellblade 2, and then fucking Saints Row reboot, while Metro Exodus just sits there waiting to be played. It's like, that's not a good use of your time. Even from this standpoint of the content creation standpoint, I could get so much more out of diving into a Metro Exodus than, not to just keep shitting on those games. I'm sure some people like those games, but yeah. I've just always had this kind of mindset where, I don't know if you would call it necessarily insecurity, but like, I know I don't have the personality to become some, I'm not going to blow up based off of my humor. I'm not like a good joke guy. I don't find myself all that humorous. I don't think I have some bubbly personality that I'm really going to be able to rely on. I don't have the editing chops. Like, I'm not some, tech wizard. I'm not some super smart fucking, I can figure out all the cool editing tricks and make this thing look extravagant and just pop all over the place, and you got cool colors splashing and cool effects, and I don't even know the terms that I'm supposed to be using here for editing. So I've never really known what I could rely on. So I think I just end up relying on trying to work hard as hell and try to make that the backbone, where it's like, all right, let's just try to play as many games as humanly possible, talk about as many games as possible, and just accrue that information, store that information in your head, because that will lead to more content that I'm able to make. Where it's, predictions videos are a whole lot easier when you're playing a whole lot of games, where you have all of these developers and publishers kind of stored away in your head. And it's like, oh damn, well, these prediction videos do pretty well, and that's something that's a direct translation, where you're playing as many games as humanly possible, and you kind of tuck that information away in the back of your head. Or like most underrated games of the year, hidden gems videos, stuff like that, those always do pretty damn well. And that's, 20 minutes of work, just scrolling through the trophies and achievements and be like, oh yeah, that was a hidden gem, that was a hidden gem. And then you remember a couple facts about the game, and boom, you crank out some content. So that's always been my kind of thing, where it's, I don't think I have those other things to rely on, so I'm just going to try to play as many games as humanly possible so that I can create as much content as possible, because I feel like that's the only way this thing is going to grow. I don't feel like there's any chance of this growing from just being like, oh yeah, this he's got the best personality in the biz. Like, no shot. But I do think, not that I'm ever the person that should be giving advice or tips on, content creation tips, but I will say that's something that is almost universal, where if you're looking to create a video game channel, I think it's just almost universal good advice to play a lot of games, to to play as many games as you can, not to go overboard. And I think that 9 times out of 10 I am going overboard, so I'm not recommending doing this at all. But just trying to play games, because I think that it kind of cuts through a lot of the even if you're not necessarily the best in a lot of these other areas, you're at least able to just store up that information. And you just start seeing so many, opportunities to make other videos because of the different games you played. Like, so many times I'll be playing a game and I'm like, oh damn, that's a really weird mechanic in this game. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about weird mechanics in video games. Or, you run into something that's a pet peeve and you're like, oh, that's actually a really, I wonder if other people have a similar pet peeve. So you're like, okay, well, let's talk about pet peeves in games. And it just really starts to keeps the wheels turning. But at the same time, if you're not in this position, if you're not looking to get into the grind of the content creation, these are things you should never even think about. Just enjoy your games at a normal pace. I would not recommend finishing games that you think are average or below average. I would not recommend putting 60 hours into a, bloated, below average open world game. Just play games. Enjoy games like a normal person. I really do think that a part of me definitely enjoyed gaming more before I was doing this. But I fucking absolutely love doing this part as well. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. So yeah, I have no idea what the hell I'm rambling about at this point. I'm trying to do these kind of quick ramble videos, pop in here, talk about something, and just whatever random thought hits my brain. Especially now that Loon's doing a lot of the editing for the longer stuff, I have more time to record some of this slightly shorter form stuff. So that's what this is. I hope y'all maybe hopefully found this mildly entertaining. Yeah, so I guess my parting words is to play games play games normally and naturally and enjoy it. I think you get so much more enjoyment out of gaming, just like totally taking a step back and immersing yourself in the world and not really, uh, not really thinking about too many external factors. I I don't know. Do what the fuck you want to do. I'm not the person to be giving advice